Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Chew. Today is day 3 of week 10. I promised you yesterday that we would look at examples of faith that fails. Again, our foundational passage is Philippians chapter 3, but we looked at the background of Paul yesterday because he wanted us to understand the difference between what the world sees as qualifications and important and what God sees. And the faith that we place in God is more important than our credentials, than our bona fides, if you will. I want to look at 3 people very quickly. I'll give you some passages to look at. I hope you've got a pen and paper so you can write them down. Let's look at Abraham and Sarah. God promised them an heir in Genesis chapter 15. It took a while for Sarah to become pregnant, so long in fact that she became impatient and she offered her servant Hagar to Abraham, saying, let's fulfill God's promise through her since I'm barren. And so Hagar became pregnant. As soon as she did, strife developed between Sarah and Hagar. Then she had Ishmael. Then Sarah becomes pregnant by Abraham, and they have Isaac. And that conflict exists even today. So a decision to take matters in their own hands, to fail to have faith in God for the promise that he gave, resulted in strife in relationships within the family. Then how about Moses? And Moses, in Exodus chapter 17, God gives Moses instructions to strike a rock in order for water to come forth for the nation of Israel and for their animals. And he does this and they get their water. And then in Numbers chapter 20, God instructs Moses to speak to the rock this time, because once again, the children of Israel are complaining that they're thirsty. They have no water. So Moses is standing before the rock, and I don't know if it was because he was angry and he forgot God's instruction this time or what. The Bible tells us he was angry. He struck the rock twice, and God issued forth water. That's not a bad thing, right? Except for one thing. Moses failed to do what God had told him to do, and because of that, Moses never got to see the promised land. Well, what about David? David decided to move the Ark of the Covenant in 1 Chronicles chapter 13. Not a bad thing, except it went wrong. David failed to follow the detailed instructions that God gave Moses in Numbers chapter 4. In verse 15, God said that no one was to touch any of the holy things or they would die. Well, instead of carrying the Ark of the Covenant as God had instructed, they put the Ark of the Covenant on an ark that was drawn by oxen. Well, as they neared where they were going, the oxen stumbled. And as they did, Uzzah reaches out his hand to steady the Ark of the Covenant. He touched it, and in doing so, God struck him dead. David was angry over this, but then he was afraid of God. So he ends up leaving the Ark of the Covenant with another family so that he could go on back to the city of David. So he failed in his mission. He failed in his faith, as did Uzzah. Uzzah's the one that died for it. However, it all went wrong from the beginning because they failed to follow the instructions God had given them. Listen, God's heart is for us to trust him, to know that he provides for us, that he will keep his promises. Jesus lived this in every way and in everything that he did while he was here on earth, and he continues to apply that faith even today as he sits at the right hand of the Father. And we're called to do the same thing. So we ask ourselves, which way are we choosing? Are we choosing the way of Jesus, or are we choosing our own way? We have 3 examples here where people chose their own way and it ended badly. I want to encourage you to read these passages, and as you do, invite the Holy Spirit to give you eyes to see and ears to hear God's truth from his word. Open your heart and mind to receive these truths. And then, whatever the Holy Spirit leads you to do, Take those steps of faith with the same boldness, commitment, and courage of Jesus. Trust me, you will begin to build your faith by taking the steps that you're led to take. I pray you'll have a wonderful day, my friends. Go in the peace of God. Blessings to you. Bye for now.